Hello everyone, my name is Silver the Hedgehog, and today I will be reading you all Chapter 11 of The Walking Dead Hope, a Walking Dead fanfiction written by Goofy Gomez from Wattpad. Now this is a love story between Louis and Clementine, and so far this story has been really good. According to what Sonic and his friends told me, including Blaze, my girlfriend. So I decided I should give the 11th chapter a read. Goofy Gomez, thank you very much for giving us permission to read your story. Now are you ready to get reading? Okay, here we go. How much farther do you reckon? Lizzie's question broke through Louis's thoughts. They were walking down the main avenue of an abandoned town a few miles from a hilltop. Luckily, they still had Javi's car, so it had to be a short ride. He looked up from the map, pursing his lips. We should be getting there in a couple of blocks, he assured her. He stashed the map into his back pocket, looking around. The street was deserted. Rusted cars were strewn around. A few lampposts had been torn down, their cables wrapped around the poles. They saw corpses littering the streets, most of them mangled or mutilated in one way or another. This must have been one of the first towns to fall, Louis thought ruefully, imagining the chaos that must have spread through the major cities. As they got to the crossroads, he stopped in his tracks. He held out an arm for Lizzie to stop. He looked around, examining for storefronts. On one of the corners was a laundromat that advertised lowered prices in the summer. Some of the other stores included clothes shops and a small supermarket. The signs of the corner read Lawrence Street and Lincoln Avenue. "We're here," he announced, checking the map once again and nodding. This was the last place Maggie heard from these guys. They last checked in about 3 hours ago, Lizzie said, her hands on her hips. They could have gone anywhere within 40-block radius, even with walkers blocking their way. Well, I don't see any walkers right now, he replied, shrugging. I guess we spread out and searched for clues in these stores. Jesus said they were looking mainly for electrical supplies, so the laundromat and the hardware store are our best bet. You take the hardware store, she suggested, offering the man a soft smile. Holler if you need anything. Right back at you, he said, making his way to the store with his trusty chair leg in at his side. As he pushed the door open, a little bell announced his arrival. He looked back at Lizzie, whose back was turned to him. Taking a deep breath, he ventured in. Inside, the shelves that occupied most of the space were picked clean. Dust covered their surfaces. He deduced that no one had been here in years, let alone the last day. He paced the narrow aisles, carefully inspecting whatever abnormally his eyes could pick up. The shelves themselves contained nothing out of the ordinary, aside of occasional splatter of dry old blood. When he got to the back office, it was pitch black. He used the flashlight provided by Maggie to shine into the room. Charles at the ready. He almost jumped when he heard a soft growl to his left. A walker was lying against the wall, both his legs trapped underneath an old-timey television. His bony arms flailed weakly in his direction. Poor guy must have bled out, he breathed, shaking his head solemnly. With the well-placed swing on the chair leg, he crushed its skull and put it out of its misery. No matter how many times he did it, he never got used to the feeling. He did a quick sweep of the rest of the room, cursing under his breath, when he came up empty of clues or supplies. He slowly walked through the store once more, inspecting the shelves in search of anything he'd missed. He didn't get very far when a blood-chilling scream tore through the street and his eyes perked up. Pushing open the front door, he ran full speed of the direction of a scream. Once outside, he caught a glimpse of a couple of walkers lazily droning inside the laundromat, and Lizzie's screams erupting from it. He ran inside, catching the attention of one of the walkers. With the strong swing of his makeshift bat, he swatted its head clean off. In front of him, Lizzie struggled with the robust walker as another had a strong grip on her curly black hair. Her hunting knife lay on the ground next to her, out of reach. He decided the big guy was a priority, with the running momentum tackling it to the ground. Unsheathing its own knife, he plunged it deep into the skull. Quickly getting to his feet, he used Charles to shatter the other walker's arms. Loosening its grip on Lizzie's hair, the rotting hand fell to the floor, releasing her from its deadly grasp, making her trip. Louis disposed of the second walker with ease, breathing heavily and turning to Lizzie, who was still on the ground. "Need any help with that?" he joked, offering her a hand. She took it and heaved herself to her feet. They both stood silent for a moment, their hearts in their mouths, and breathing with difficulty. When they had composed themselves, she looked into his eyes, sighing with relief. He gave her a lopsided grin, and was startled when she did the last thing he expected her to do. She kissed him. Too stunned to act, Louis's eyes opened wide. His hand released Charles onto the floor. Once he regained control of his body, he swatted her hand, which was resting comfortably on his chest, away from him. He forcefully pushed her away, with his mouth agape and his brow furrowed. At that moment, he looked at a deer in front of two massive headlights. "What the heck was that?" he exclaimed once he regained his voice. "I'm sorry," she blurted, stepping forward. He raised an arm, stopping her advances. "Stay back," he hissed, venom in his voice. "Do you remember why we are doing this? Why we're going to this place to rescue these people from Maggie, huh?" She stuttered, searching for words that wouldn't come. "We're here because I need to find my wife, Lizzie, and fast," he growled, his voice dangerously low. "What even gave you the idea that I'd be okay with that?" "I thought we had something," she trailed off, looking down abashedly. Louis pinched the bridge of his nose, shaking his head, leaned down and took his chair leg. "Look, I'm sure you're a great girl," he began, finding the urge to roll his eyes. "But I'm married, Lizzie. I love my wife very much, and nothing is going to change that." Lizzie scratched the back of her head, unable to meet his fiery gaze. "I'm sorry," she muttered, her voice barely above a whisper. He brushed past her, heaving a chair leg over his shoulder and stopping at the door. "Oh, and Lizzie," he said, making her look up at him, "don't ever kiss me again." They walked silently down the avenue, looking around in search of the men they were supposed to rescue. Every now and then, Lizzie would spare a fleeting glance for Louis, who kept his eyes fixed on the road ahead. His head was jumbled in thoughts, none of them pleasant. How had he been so blind? He should have sensed something didn't add up about her. She'd been way too cheery about this whole mission. As they walked, he kicked some rubble on the street, looking down at the ground. Right now, he couldn't concentrate on Lizzie. He had to find these men and bring them back to safety. "You reckon they could have gone this way?" he asked Lizzie, who just huffed in response. Rolling his eyes, he kept walking forward. His question was quickly answered when they heard multiple muffled growls coming from somewhere down the street. They shared a concerned look, their eyes widening. Louis broke into a sprint, pinpointing the source of the noise to an abandoned bar whose sign was hanging loosely. They burst into the establishment, weapons brandished. The faint light that seeped through the door illuminated the bleak scene ahead. Most of the tables were overturned, and a few chairs splintered beyond recognition. The bar was covered in black mold, and most of the alcoholic beverages had long ago been ransacked. A few walkers roamed around. Their low grumbling made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. He counted 7 of them. As they hadn't noticed them yet, he and Lizzie made short work of the stragglers, working together to take out those that took an interest in them. When they were all dead, an eerie silence fell on them. Louis and Lizzie looked around in search of any remaining walkers. When they found none, Louis deemed it completely empty. "Anyone there?" Louis asked into the dimly lit room, raising Charles over his head. "We're not here to hurt you." "Don't shoot, please," a weak voice replied from behind the counter. A bloody hand was raised above it. "We're unarmed." And this is where we'll stop for part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 of Silver the Hedgehog Reads, Chapter 11 of The Walking Dead: Hope.